Welcome everyone that's coming in from the waiting room. Thank you all so much for hanging in there while we got ourselves together. We've got a few more folks that are coming in, and so we're just going to give them just a second, and then we are going to get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. All right, it looks like the waiting room is clear. So let me just get us started then. First of all, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for joining us for our panel discussion today on healing through community, creating pathways for the formerly incarcerated. For those that don't know me, my name is Darcel Lahr. I am a professor of business practice in the Lokey School of Business and Public Policy at Mills College. We have come together in community today in order to center the voices of those who are doing this work every day in creating and strengthening paths for successful reentry and reduced recidivism for our returning community citizens. We are very grateful to be able to welcome some of the most dedicated action leaders in this space today to share their work and lead us in a deep discussion about how we can together nurture healing for our returning citizens within our community. Our discussion today is going to be in the form of two panels. The first, Women Creating Pathways for Healing, will go until about 2:15 with a short Q&A following that panel discussion. And then we're going to have a short break and then resume at 2:30, where we're going to have our second panel, Activating Public Policy for Change, and that'll run until about 3:15. And then we'll wrap up with a final Q&A for the panelists, with the panelists until about 3:30. A couple of housekeeping notes for the session today. First of all, I would like to remind everyone to please stay muted as our panelists are speaking so that we can have the best chance for clear audio reception for everyone on the call today. If you do have questions, though, please do feel free to drop those into the chat box, and one of the event hosts today will be tracking the Q&A opportunities so that we can talk about the questions between and after the sessions. And today's event is being recorded. As we always do, we hope to be able to make this recording available to those who weren't able to join us today. Before we get into our main discussion today, I'd like to start by taking a moment to thank, first of all, the Mills Ethnic Studies Program and the students, faculty, staff, and alum members of the Planning Committee of the Mills Black History Month 365 for organizing the event today. And I'd also like to thank the Black Action Forum, comprised of the Black Student Collective, the Black Faculty and Staff Association, the Alumni of Color Committee, and the National Black MBA Association at Mills. Thank you for your support and for your visioning for our event today. And once again, a special, resounding, over-the-top, joyful shout of thanks to Zamora for holding us together. Zamora, again, thank you for all that you carry on our behalf. I'd also like to thank the Mills College Public Policy Program, Touro University, California MPH Program in Health Equity and Criminal Justice, and the Associated Students of Mills College for your sponsorship and your investment in this event, but also in our shared community. And finally, we would like to deeply acknowledge the land currently occupied by Mills College on unceded Ohlone territory. With that, please allow me to now briefly introduce our guest panelists. Our first panel, again, Women Creating Pathways for Healing. We have June Lee, our moderator, the founder and owner of Leo Pride Designs, and the community ambassador for the Women's Social Entrepreneurship Center in East Oakland. We have panelist Ebony Carter, the assistant director for Healing Well in San Francisco, and panelist Kim Carter, the founder and ambassador for Time for Change Foundation. I do want to shout out to our second panel that will be joining us after a little while. This is Activating Public Policy for Change. We're going to have at that time Jonathan McMillan, the moderator, the chief success strategist for Better Than Average LLC, Dorsey Nunn, the executive director of Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and Obie Anthony, the founder and executive director of Exonerated Nation. All right, so with that, I want to turn it over to our first panel, and I'll turn it over to June Lee, again, our moderator. June, it is so wonderful to have you back with our Mills community today. June and I have known each other and have been striving down the road together since about 2016. June was the true visionary for and the inspiration for the launch of the Women's Social Entrepreneurship Center in Oakland that we have been growing together since about 2018. And in fact, this picture behind me is the creative work that June did in the Women's Social Entrepreneurship Center. June, it is wonderful to have you. So everyone, please join me in welcoming June, Ebony, and Kim.
Oh man, so really, I'm so honored to be here today. So today is not just about today. I always think about like, where do we move to? And where do we move to as a community? So thank you, Dorsey. You are a friend. You have allowed me to do so many different things. You've given me that pathway, and I will speak more about that. I do want to also introduce these amazing women, Ebony Carter and Kim Carter. I know them personally. They are some dynamic women. I actually do work with Ebony Carter at the Hillywell. I'm a community host there. I'm so grateful to be her coworker, and I believe we're friends today. We've gotten to know each other she's been working there for about a little bit over 2 years. Ebony is just, I think the world of Ebony. That's why I wanted her to be part of this panel. She's a trauma-informed certified yoga therapist. She's a creator. She's an artist. And one of the things that I really discovered about Ebony recently during the pandemic, since we've been on Zoom, we go into the homes of each other now. Ebony is an amazing mother of 2 beautiful young girls. One of her littlest young girl is part of our staff. She's part of our staff now. So I'm just so grateful that you're here, Ebony. Kim Carter. Kim, I've known Kim for over, it hasn't been 25 years, maybe 30 years.
No, 15, girl. No.
Kim is one of these women. She's a founder and an ambassador of Time for Change Foundation. Kim is a motivational speaker. Anytime I had conversations with Kim, afterwards, I just wanted to run through a wall. She got me that pumped up where I just wanted to I knew I could do everything, anything. I had so much energy when we got done talking. So Kim is just a motivational speaker. She's a truth teller. And so Kim, her connection with why I wanted her here, why I invited her into this space, because she has been working with women coming home from incarceration for so many years, for decades. So she has laid that path, that foundation for herself and for many women that have come like home, men too. And I wanted to really, I'm glad that we're having this conversation about men and women coming home. I'm gonna speak on my experience. And then when we were having conversations with Darcel, we were talking about healing and housing and what does that all look like? I can speak on that. I went in to the prison system in March 1990. I was at the California Institution for Women. I came home 2010. I was sent and I paroled to Claremont in Southern California. A month after I got here, they sent me up to the Bay Area, not knowing anyone up here. So when I came here, I was sent to a halfway house in the Tenderloin with 200 men. And me and two other women were the other two women there. And I really experienced a lot of stuff when I came home. And one of the things I really realized that I really needed and looked for was community. But I had to put that to the side because I needed the job. And that was my main focus. But then there was one day I discovered Oakland. And so I was living in San Francisco for about 2 years almost before I discovered this amazing place in Oakland. And that's where I found my community, my creative community. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Like, how do we heal through our communities and then make the pathway for people, men and women that come behind us. And we can do it so creatively. I think so what I've learned from 2020 is we have to rethink so many different things, and we can do it creatively, and we can do it with the community. But one of the reasons why I wanted Ebony here, and I'm gonna turn it over to you, Ebony, is really because we talk a whole lot, and I think that's one of the reasons we both work at the Healing Well. We talk about trauma, we talk about mental health, and then we start gaining the tools how to deal with that. Because coming from prison, even before I went into prison, I was traumatized. Coming out of prison, I was traumatized. Incident that just happened in January. Something really traumatic happened to me in January, but I have some tools. And so I want Ebony to speak on how does healing look? How does trauma look? And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ebony, real quick with that.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you, June, for such a warm introduction. And thank you for Mills for putting this on. I was really drawn to being a part of this conversation because I do believe that trauma is an important and necessary conversation for us to have, because it really is the root of most of the pain that we endure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the trauma that I've seen in the work that I've done, and then how that kind of moves and stays with us as we age, as we become adults. So I actually worked in child welfare and in the foster care system for a little over 12 years before I came to the Healing Well. And in that experience, I had the pleasure of working with a lot of wonderful individuals and families, but also, unfortunately, saw firsthand how trauma shows up in the lives of children, in the lives of, cousins and family members and parents. And so for me, in order for us to talk about real healing, we have to understand how trauma sets in, how it kind of permeates and touches just about everything. So there's a statistic that says about 90% of women who are incarcerated have experienced some form of sexual trauma. There's also a statistic that states that men have just as high percentage rates of experiencing sexual trauma or witnessing some sort of violence or death. So when we experience trauma as a young person, it really is detrimental to our systems, our physical body, our mental body, our spirit, everything. Trauma has the power, really, of throwing the cloak of invisibility over ourselves. It really separates us from who we really are. And when that happens to us as a young person, without the proper supports in place, we tend to find ourselves experiencing irritability. It actually changes the circuitry and the chemistry of our brains. It enables us from making and establishing long-lasting relationships with peers and with adults. And it does damage to our internal systems. And later in life can cause heart disease, liver disease. It can even shorten our life expectancy by up to 20 years. So when we talk about trauma, and especially when we talk about trauma in young people, we really need to think about how, when we don't interrupt the cycle of trauma, it stays with us. It literally changes the way we see the world, the way we perceive the world, how we act, the activities that we participate in. It really disconnects us from who we are at our core. I feel that we are energetic, vibrational, and spiritual beings. And what that means is when we come earthside, we come with what I like to call an internal navigation system, right? We already have in us everything that we need to navigate the world and to step into our potential. But circumstances in life, the roots of trauma, even multi-generational trauma, affect us and change us and separate us from that. So essentially, I just feel that healing is necessary because we need to see ourselves in our wholeness. We deserve that. We are so wonderful. We are so divine. But circumstances in life take us away from that. And I just think that not only does it lend to us, possibly being incarcerated later in life, or having detrimental physical effects, it just really sucks the joy out of being here, And I just think that one of the things that we always need to remember is that we have the ability to heal, right? As soon as we start to understand where our trauma comes from. Because trauma is so painful, it's typical for us to separate ourselves from it, right? To distance ourselves, to do things like participate in addiction, or even participate in sexual activity that is not healthy for us, trying to find relationships to feel that emptiness. But really what it is if we do the work of uncovering where we were hurt, then we can start to implement practices that help to bring us back to balance. We were intended to live in balance. And when we are affected by trauma, because I think trauma is a deep core wound, when we are affected by trauma, it knocks every system in our body off, right? Because there is a such thing as our subtle body, the part of us which we don't see. And from that place is where we navigate the world. So when we've been impacted by trauma, we are not able to see ourselves. We are not able to be in balance. And that is so necessary for anything we want to do in the world. So when we talk about having access to housing, having access to employment, it's necessary that healing is happening simultaneously with those things. Because if the root of trauma is not dug up, if we don't work on that, then we have a high probability of all the other things that we're putting in place crumbling. Yes. Because we don't have the proper coping skills to navigate the things that are going to come up in life for us. Each one of us is born with what they call a window of tolerance, right? So for kids who have experienced trauma, their window of tolerance is decreased, meaning the amount of everyday stress that normally you can deal with without blowing out, like somebody cut you off in traffic, somebody said something sideways to you at work, you lost your keys. Most of the time, you can respond to those things from a place of self-awareness. You can regulate your emotions and respond appropriately. But when your window of tolerance is very small, you have the ability and the probability of blowing out, becoming verbally aggressive or physically aggressive, because inside of your body, there's just chaos, right? Peace is necessary for us, right? It's much like the old school, what's the old school cordless phone, right? There's a base, there's a cordless phone. You can only go so far before there's static and you don't know what the hell is going on. So you need to come back to base. And I think there are multiple ways in which we can heal together collectively and individually in community and return to base. We need opportunities to come back to who we are, because it's from that place that we really show up in the world and we're really able to take advantage of the things that come to us, like employment, like housing, etc.
Thank you. Ebony, I think I want to just, so you said some things about healing, but, and then this is where I want to bring you into the conversation, Kim, because if you don't have housing, you cannot heal.
Right.
You need a safe place to lay your head, to recuperate, and build like all the things that you want, but you've got to have housing to heal. And so, Kim, you have been building housing for yourself, for others, for many years, women and kids, taking folks homeless and housing them. And I want you to like really talk about like just your experience and like the pathways that you have built for returning citizens and just your experience with that.
Thank you, June. I just want to first give homage to my sister. Thank you for so eloquently bringing up some root causes and some conditions that, exist, for our culture. I want to thank you, June, for, being on fire for this work and using your experiences to help enlighten others. And I want to thank the Mills College for putting this on today to really lift up some stuff that's going to bubble up, and it's going to be some uncomfortable stuff, but that's okay, because being comfortable is to have a knee on your neck today's day. And we're not about to be doing that. So comfortability is not something that I, for one, is going to be looking for. When I think about the pathway to healing, when you were speaking, June, it was like, see, community, to me, communities, we're taking care of one another, so it's like when you came home, if we had community, we could have been there for you. I hate the fact that after doing that much time, and she was just dropped into the belly of the beast. You was dropped into, an environment that has been not invested in, that has been over policed, that is highly crime infected, drug infested, unsafe. It's like, for real though. I come from a place of barbed wire and, and cages, and you drop me off into this lion's den and say, figure it out. See, community should have been there to receive you. You see what I'm saying? And so when I think of community, I think about what we need to do to build it. So that which is not there, we must create, right? So then there goes time for change. I had to create the housing and the spaces that we need because it was not there for us. Because the same community that spit me into the penitentiary allowed me to get out homeless and recycle and go back in. So all those years you seen me going back and forth in the penitentiary, it was easy to sit and think, wow, she just got out 6 months ago. She's back already. When folks like you was saying, Lord, you just give me one chance to get out. I'm gonna get out. Like, we've been doing a long time. I want to get out. And you watched us recycle in and out. But little did you know we was getting out to nothing. We was getting out to being oppressed. We never had a chance to heal from anything. We was always being traumatized. We was always being reoccurring the trauma. We was always being oppressed. We was always under white supremacy. We was always a number with a barcode getting scanned in and out of the system. We were being exploited. Right? We were being exploited for the color of our skin and how we can produce money for other people. And when we start learning about the real basis of trauma and trauma informed and all that, we see a lot of white folks basically writing a whole bunch of stuff and basically just swimming in our pain and making all this money off of hearing some experiences. But see, I believe, and this is the Kim Carter thing, I believe true healing comes with being able to value self. Because for so long we've been told you're not enough. You know what I'm saying? You don't talk correctly. You didn't go to school, get the right PhD. But the end of the story is you are enough. And when you walk in your enoughness, the God that created this earth and created all the funders and created everything around us is going to put you on a path to do exactly what you was intended to do. And those experiences you had of being being in that belly of that beast, you're going to use those experiences and you're going to be able to share that to help other folks. So girls that are coming out of prison will have a healing because they're hearing the word of truth come out of your mouth, that you will be able to set them free. And we as community will create the space that's needed. Yeah, I went from homelessness to building housing. I had to. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna learn how to be a developer. I had to do what needed to be done because it wasn't there for us. I started off with one housing program, which was a one single family home with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. I had 6 beds. That wasn't enough. I had to do another one. And every time I moved forward, I had a very oppressive, environment that's like, no, not in this neighborhood. It's like, yeah, in this neighborhood. I am not going to build anything in a drug-infested, crime-infested area. We're going to build where libraries are open. We're going to build where schools are performing. We're going to build where grocery stores can have fresh vegetables. We're going to build where we can walk outside our houses and not get shot too. Hello, we're going to build exactly where we want to build that. And I learned the power of resources and the power of the economy. So while we're looking at racism and all that, for real, we have a economic deprivation that we suffer from, that we haven't had the resources to get the therapists, to lay on the couch, to talk about the adverse childhood experiences, the rapes, the molestation. We haven't had the money to go to a farm, in Connecticut and go out there with the sheep and, and watch the little dandelions grow and be one with nature and walk. We ain't had that. We've been on the boulevard where it's fast cars, movie stars, drugs, alcohol, the whole 9 yards. So in that context, if we don't create an environment in which we can live healthy, it's not going to be created for us. So that's what I do. I try to create an ecosystem within this larger patriarchal white supremacist society that we can hold space for one another, so that we can sit with one another and light a candle and share and love and laugh and cry and heal. Thank you.
Kim, it's like, I just want to move and just like, I'm telling you, every time I listen to Kim, I just want to just recreate the world. And I'm so glad because Kim was living in Southern California and she just moved up here to the Bay Area. I think it's been like over a year, 2 years, maybe 3
years.
And then it's like, I was like, okay, like, what can we do? Since the pandemic has happened, I've been reaching out to some creative folks because I found the way to heal for myself is through my creative community. I found and then I was around some really powerful Black and brown women that was creating their own business. That's how I got connected to Mills College. And then Mills College gave me a pathway to really create in a way that it just made me feel better and it healed me some more. My job at the Healing Well, it allows me to be creative, and that's where I meet my community. But I really made and connected to my community when I came to Oakland. And that's where I started thinking about how but for me, it always goes back to housing and healing for me. And where I start thinking okay, and start seeing people they were getting housing, but sometimes it was just a transition. And then we have to think people need permanent housing. In my experience, folks, as a woman coming out, what I've always seen and experienced, there have been so many programs for men, but not a lot for women. So my whole focus for me as a Black queer woman coming home from incarceration, I was always wanted to say, I need to build and create community for women, make it safe and creative. One of the things that I've been talking about, and I started talking about with Darcel, and I'll get into this later and stuff, but I just want to put it out there. I'm looking for an acre of land to create permanent tiny homes. And I'll explain. I know some people think I think the shed, there's these sheds that have been popping up like throughout the Bay Area have been giving tiny homes a bad name. The tiny homes I'm thinking about is built out of shipping containers. And I always want to recycle things, upcycle things, and relove things. Tiny homes made out of shipping containers are no joke. And so I will build a tiny home community for permanent housing for women. And we also will have businesses there. That's what I'm going to do. I will need my community to work with me. But I really want to say something to Ebony. And this question is for Ebony first. So, you know, as we have been talking about healing and housing and community, I think, and then how does, like, when it comes to families and friends and community organizations, how can we create better ways for people coming home, for women, for men? How do we create those for when it comes to our families? How do we talk about to this with our families and our friends and community organizations? How can they be better, or are they better? And yeah.
Yeah, good question. I think one of the things, I don't know if I said this when I first started talking, is I think we need to have these critical conversations within our own families, right? The idea of trauma is known to most of us, but we don't actually talk about how we ourselves have been impacted. We have to draw the correlation to what we've experienced, what our ancestors have experienced, and how that's affecting us. And that includes systemic racism and secondary trauma and all of that. So I think we need to have critical conversations. I also think that we need to amplify the voices of healers and community leaders that are doing the work already in our neighborhoods. And what that looks like could be different. That could be shouting them out, that could be volunteering, that could be funding so that they can continue to do that work, because it's important. They also need, the healers themselves need a network of support so that they can continue the work. They themselves have experienced trauma, yet they are still showing up every day to help others heal. And that is what sometimes is called secondary or vicarious trauma. Being in the presence of other people, listening to the stories of their trauma can be devastating to a person. That's a lot of energy to hold. So we need to do our part of shoring up the places and the people who are already doing the work. We need to normalize having conversations in our family about what happened to us. And more, we need to embrace each other. We really, really do. Our trauma may look different. The way our trauma shows up in our life may look different, but the root of the trauma is deep in this country and in our communities. And really, it all comes from the same place, to be very honest, right? So when we start to acknowledge that, when we start having those difficult conversations, when we stop pretending that we have not been affected, when we do the work of coming back to ourselves, then I think naturally that pathways that are sustainable create themselves, because the healing part is the piece that creates sustainability, right? Because until you do that, there's always the risk that it can fall apart. So I hope I answered the question.
You did, Ebony, and thank you, Kim and Ebony. I just thank you for just everything that you're giving us today. Kim, I'm going to come to you. One of the things, like, so think about this. What should, and I know you thought about this before, what should our next steps be when it comes to what we're talking about just right now? Housing, healing, like community. How does that look for when you think about this and when you see it, when you envision it? How does that look like for you, the next steps?
So one of the things that I truly think has not been really lifted up and people don't really think about it is, one of the things one of the things said in the Bible is greater thing. This is what Jesus said. If anybody know about Jesus, greater things than and I have done, you will do. So you will go from homeless to building housing. You will go from breaking laws and making laws. You will do that which the human eye will seem impossible, because greater is in you is of the world. And so when you get back to the core, back to self and being authentic with who we are as a people, and that's one of the things that I hold up for myself, is because I could easily be in some rooms and hear about, us Black people being in the bottom disparity, how Black women lost more than half the jobs in the COVID, how Black folks is dying more from the COVID, how Black folks lost more jobs, how Black folks this and Black folks that. I mean, I can go along and sing and hymn that song all day long, but I'm not singing that. I'm not playing victimology with all this stuff right here. What I'm going to sing to myself is, oh, greater is he that is in me. So I'm going to keep coming up with ideas. I'm going to keep being creative. I'm going to keep trying things that I have never tried before. But guess what? Sometimes those things work. And hallelujah, we got a miracle on your hands. And we keep seeing more and more and more miracles happen. So I'm a believer in what shall be. So when I see more women empowered to believe that, yes, they can, and not be held hostage to, sometimes our circle is so small and we got these dream killers. And as soon as you mention you got an idea, they come behind you. Oh, hold on a minute, because you didn't go to school for that and you didn't know them that. Hey, envision yourself with folks who always stay in the possibility, the what is, because one thing I'm clear on, we have to create what we want. It's not already here for us. We're not going to go into one of these systems and tinker on it and reform it and get what we need. The system is doing what it was designed to do for who it was designed for. But I say we can create our own system. I say we can create an economy that works for us. We see that we have done it all the time. Now, they may have made it illegal, only to turn around and make it legal later, but we know we can create an economy for ourselves. And right now, this is the time for Black women, Black businesses to be uplifted. This is a time for our brothers to lean in with the Black sisters. Lean in with us, my Black brother, because you are not, it's not a matter of you or us, you know what I'm saying? Because you wouldn't be here without us, because we give birth. We give birth, we give life, we create the sons, we create the men. You came from our womb. Respect the motherhood. Respect the motherhood that Black women bring to this table, and then you will be a stronger person with us, and together we will fight against these systems that will tear down your sister, tear down your sister's children, foster them out in the foster care system, never to be seen again. We will tear down those systems together if we come together. So I'm just asking everybody on this call and everything else, you know what I'm saying? Reimagine, think out of the box, reimagine. What would the world look like if you could do what you wanted to do? That's what I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to join this group or join that group. Yeah, I'm gonna say follow me on Facebook and Instagram, because we all supposed to say that. But I'm going to ask you to go ahead and look inside yourself, and I want you to imagine what it is that you can do and lean into that, because everything that I have done, the more things that I have done that have succeeded, there's things I tried that didn't, but it's like this. I tried. I did not sit back and relax and say, oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and give me a cushy government job and don't do nothing effective for the community. Now I'm just gonna roll with my past experiences and take my little counseling and call it a day. No, I've taken my pain and made it a platform, because I'm not gonna be a victim to the oppressors' constant pathology to take what is Black and turn it into ugly when Black is really beautiful. See, let me say Black is beautiful. Black is beautiful. So Black is beautiful, then we're going to shine in our greatness and our Blackness unapologetically. And don't let these misconstructions and this social construct make us think we're anything less. We are so great. We are so great. They sit back and think about all kinds of ways to undermine us. We are so great. They hate to see us coming together. They want to call us a gang. We are so great. They try to come in on our phones and stuff. Come on now. We are some great people. Clap your hands, great people. We are some great people. Let's do this great work.
Oh, I'm motivational speaker. I'm telling you, every time I come into a room with Kim, she does this to me. All of a sudden I start talking louder, and my hands just like, but that's what I love. That's like, Kim and Ebony and just Darcel and just some great, just passionate women that I met and men in the East Bay in Oakland. And I met these folks because, and they took me in. And when I say they took me in, they held me, they helped me. And they brought me into spaces. And the most like healing spaces I came into was when we were creating. And I had different spaces where I could create, make a sustainable income with that. But I think like for me, I always think about how can we reimagine our future and our future together? What does that look like? What does that feel like? But we do it with the community. And most of the time, we have such a creative community. I'm looking at faces right now, and I know like just Black and brown people are some of the most creative people out here right now. Like 2020, if we are not gonna reimagine how our future looks like, then when things happen again, there we go again. But we have to reimagine how our future looks like, and we do it together, doing brainstorming. We got to talk, have these honest conversation, hard conversation, be radically honest about it, but create the world we know we need to see and where we need to live in. And I'm so grateful that we are here together, just talking. We're talking about it. We're going to be about it. We need to be about it in our actions. Like we can come and talk and talk and talk, but it's our actions. But our actions, we don't have to do it alone. That's the beautiful thing about it. We don't have to do this alone, and we shouldn't. We create the communities that we want to see and live in. And then that's where I'm always going to keep saying this. I'm going to build a tiny home community.
That's right.
I will build that, and I will create businesses with people that's living there. I've started some conversations with people. I've done some things and created, like already in my past, but I have bigger and better things to do and create, and I'm going to do it with the help of community. So I thank you for everybody that came here today. Ebony and Kim, I know you powerful women. I thank you for just being here and giving us just your energy and your words and your wisdom. And people felt it, people heard it, and we are going to do some things. We have done some things, great things, but we got more things to do. I can't wait to hear what my brothers have to say about all this. I know you guys are doing some great things. Dorsey, I know like from day one, when you came home, you were just on it. You were on it and brought so many people with you. I thank you for that. But we're here for a reason. And I thank everyone who has come today. You came for a reason, not to hear us just talk today. That's not why you just came. We came to do some stuff together, and we're going to do it as a community. So thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it back over to Darcel, but like Kim, I'm sitting in a chair, but I want to run around this house like right now. Like, man,
Let's do it.
who does that to me? But thank you, Darcel.
Oh, June, Ebony, Kim, I am honored to be in this space with you. I am grateful. I'm on fire. We got work to do, and we got work to do together. This is so beautiful. I thank you, thank you, thank you. We have some minutes. We are supposed to take a break right now, but I'm going to give just a couple of minutes. There is so much life and energy and spirit going on right now. I will, if anyone has a question for the panel, we do have time to take 1 or 2 questions or a comment that you'd like to share. Zamora, we can go ahead, and if someone will raise their hand, we can unmute them. In fact, I guess we can unmute the group and invite anyone to share any thoughts or any questions that you might have.
Everyone has the ability to unmute themselves at this time.
Any last thoughts for our panel today? All right, what I do want to say is I'm not sure that everyone in the audience could see all of the chats that were coming in. We may have only had those for the administrators behind. I want everybody to know how much passion and how much spirit and how much joy and how much warmth has been shared today. This is beautiful. So what we're going to do now, there in the chat box, you'll find the information, the contact information for the folks that just spoke. We're going to take a minute to get some water. Thank you, Zamora, for making the chats visible now. To get some water, we're going to reconvene at 2:30, and then we'll start with the men's panel and keep this conversation going. So welcome, everybody. Please stay with us. We'll continue on at 2:30.
Hold on a minute.
Please, Kim. Come on, Kim.
You telling me we got 50 people on the screen and y'all can't say nothing? Y'all unmute those phones and give a shout out to my co-speaker, Miss Ebony Carter. Unmute.
Yes.
Kim's talking about it now.
True.
Beautiful.
All right.
Now we can go get some lunch, but.
Well done. All right. So the panelists are going to, Salvador, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Please.
Just wanted to say I really appreciate hearing Kim and Ebony and June, and I can feel the energy in the room. But I just want to say that June never fails to inspire me. And when she said that she is here for a greater purpose, it just really makes it okay. It makes me feel okay for me to think the same, that I can do that too, and that I might be here for something better and bigger, you know. So I'm really appreciative of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you so much for that. Oh, yeah, it really.
And thank you, Sal. This is something that I want everybody to take away from this conversation. Give yourself permission to think beyond and recognize that we all are here together to think beyond together. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Anyone else up there have any comments to make? I know you do.
I think Chrysalis had her hand up or his hand up, their hand up.
Please.
No, I just wanted to give a shout out to Shanae Adams. That's just all I wanted to do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts? Damani, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I actually have a question for both June and Kim. And Kim, you touched on this, and it's something that, you know, is kind of deep in my brain, but I struggle with trying to figure it out. There is a lot of emphasis put on Black men's struggles and survivability and just dealing with, you know, all the social issues. But Black women get lost in that conversation. And so, you know, how do we bring that to the forefront, you know, not even on level, like in the front, because it's dire. The situation is dire, and we all recognize it for what it is. And unfortunately, I think as men, our egos get in the way. And so as a result, it pushes a lot of, you know, very important issues that we all need to deal with to the side. And so how do we have that conversation as Black men, in your opinion? And two, what can we do more to one, support, but also get out the way?
You know, and I would ask you to research this, but this is really, I truly believe what has happened. I believe that, you know, the social construct that was created by white supremacy that defined what whiteness was and what roles would be has defined a role of patriarchy and male domination that have been lent to the Black people, but it's not our Black experience, and that we're really a matriarchal society. And so because we don't lift up the fact that we can't compete with white males in their roles that they have created for themselves, our Black brothers get a little twisted with thinking that they're not as good or not where they should be because they can't do what the white man do. But it was not constructive for you to do it that way because it's already been plotted against us with this economy and the systemic oppression. And instead of, assimilating into that system of, and not feeling less than, then the ego has to be built up, and it usually comes back on the sister. But the sister is doing what she was created to do, to be the mother of the earth. We're created to be the mother of the earth. That's all we know how to do. When you lift a Black woman up, you're taking care of the whole community. You're not not you per se, but the Black man is putting himself less. He is lifting up the mother of the earth. You understand what I'm saying? But the white supremacy and the indoctrination says that we have to be doing what they're supposed to do, and how the white man is the patriarch over his family. And so our folks, we get it all twisted. I believe that it comes from that. And so that until we can get our Black brothers to understand you are good enough, you don't got to compete with nothing that they created, because they created nothing that's going to work for us anyway, but a tree and a rope. I'm going to get you off of that, and I'm going to get you over here to lifting up the mother of the earth. And when she is lifted, you are lifted, my brother.
Kim, you know what can I add to that? But I think like one of the things, and the question that you had, and I think it was just that you said the question, you put it out here right now. I think like what we need to do is have those conversations, and you as a Black man, have those conversations with other Black men. Talk about when we get traumatized almost every single day we walk out the door. We could be walking down the street, just minding our own business, walking our dog, and somebody moves on the other side of the street from us just because of our color. We got to talk about that. Like, it's okay to talk about things like that, because people think it's just so small, but that's another cut and another cut. But we got to talk about, because Black men, brown men, just Black people, we got to keep healing ourselves. We get in groups, we can heal each other, cry, laugh, just have joy, and it's okay. But have honest conversations about, you know what, I was hurt today. As a Black man, talk about that stuff. Don't put it back and just say that's showing my weakness. No, that's strength in that. I think that sometimes we have it mixed up what strength is and stuff, but you putting it out there just like right now, what can you do? Have conversations, be there when a woman or a Black woman, we need to say, you know what, be with me today, smile with me today, cry with me today. Can I like lay on your shoulder today? But be in these groups and talk about it, and then be about it. But I thank you for that question, because that was really powerful. But then we got to do something about that. Like, we got to show up for each other in groups and communities and stuff. But thank you so much for that.
Ebony, did you want to add to that?
No, I thought these ladies wrapped it up super well, but I do want to just, piggyback off that last thing that June said. It is very important for us to be vulnerable with each other, because that's where healing happens. And it is okay. It really is okay. The longer we continue to pretend that we are not affected by the things that happen to us, the deeper we get into our own trauma, the harder it becomes for us to really do the work of healing. Right? So we just need to be honest with each other and have the conversations. And I'm so happy that you asked that. And I think one of the ways, just like June and Kim said, is bringing that back up. Ask that question again and again to all the people that you interact with until we come up with a solution. But we need to come together. I just think that there is real power in us showing our pain to each other.
Thank you all. Thank you all for the love, the joy, the support you've brought here today. We are going to go ahead and call an end to this panel. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to start our new one. I am so grateful and so honored and so lifted. Thank you all. Thank you. All right, for everyone else, we have a 5-minute break. We will come back at 2:33. All right, we will see everyone at 2:33, and we'll start in with our men's panel. Thank you all. We'll see you in a bit. And thank you. Thank you all so much. Jonathan is the Chief Success Strategist of Be Better Than Average, LLC. And it is a consulting company that provides success skills and personal development training and mentoring, particularly for at-risk young men of color and their families. So please, if you will all join me in welcoming Jonathan and the panelists Dorsey and Obie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Man, I kind of think I was set up for a struggle here because that was a powerful panel that we have to follow. But you know what? I always am appreciative of the opportunity to honor and hold space for our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, and the seed of our earth. So I just want to really quickly just thank all of the few former panelists. That was really powerful, and I'll say I'm inspired, y'all. My brothers on the panel here, look, they set a high bar for us to meet and reach. So I think that you know, just talking with some of y'all already, I'm already excited about the conversation. They left a fantastic groundwork about the healing that needs to happen in order for the formerly incarcerated and the community to heal. Right? They set they painted the picture, but once the healing has begun, right, then the work has to happen. Then the work has to happen. And so it's my honor to introduce two young men who are doing the work, who are making opportunities. They are using that fertile soil to build foundations in which other people can come into the community and build upon, so that we have these strong communities. I'm gonna begin first with Mr. Obie Anthony. You know, and it's one of these things. I had to holler at Obie right before the break, because we tend to, when we do our bios, right? And I am neglectful about this sometimes. Talk about all the things that we've accomplished outside in the world, and we've done all of these things to contribute to the society. But first and foremost, man, Obie is a husband and a father. So like when we talk about community work, Obie is raising his own community, supporting his own community, has a community that has his back right at home. But he also has, you know, he's also done the other work. You know, Obie was sentenced to life without parole for a murder which he did not commit when he was 19 years old. And then he was exonerated for that crime in 2011. Since then, Obie has gone on to learn how to build a new life for himself outside of prison. And for those of you who don't know, I have also been in a very similar situation. I was released from prison in 2000, in December 20th, 2000, and also found myself in that same situation. So, brother, we are brothers of a similar mind. So I appreciate all of that. But Obie has since his release and exoneration, he had the struggle that many people have: unemployment, post-traumatic stress disorder, figuring out how to reestablish those relationships with his family. And that's when he dedicated himself to supporting other exonerees, other people who had been in his circumstances, to meet their basic needs after release. In 2015, he founded the Exonerated Nation to provide essential services for these exonerees. Now, since then, Exonerated Nation has been leading efforts for securing resources for people who have been formerly incarcerated and exonerated. Exonerated Nation is committed to transforming the experiences of exonerees after release with building a community that can provide safety, stability, and as our sisters talked about previously, healing for wrongfully convicted citizens. So y'all please join me in welcoming Obie Anthony to the panel. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's absolutely honor and pleasure. Definitely, you know, I said it earlier, man. You know, I'm always in awe when when I get a chance to be in the presence or be aware of the brother Dorsey, because the sisters talked about earlier about that setting the trail way for other individuals to do the work. And I got the man in the room with me, you know what I mean? And it's a joy. So I definitely appreciate this opportunity here to be able to speak to some of the works that Exonerated Nation is doing, and also some of the efforts, in other words, that I put forth to make those things happen.
All right, and I got some questions for you where you can share some of that work and just hopefully, well, I won't even say hopefully, I know it's going to happen. You're going to inspire others to get activated, get energized, and get into the game. But as you alluded to, we have the OG of this criminal justice, I won't even say criminal justice, criminal legal system reform that has so many of us under their thumb. I had the opportunity, I've read about the man, I've read his works. I had an opportunity to have a conversation with him yesterday, and whether he likes it or not, is now Uncle Dorsey, but like this man is just phenomenal. But just like with Obie, I got to give him his accolades for being a loving father and a loving grandfather who's finding inspiration for the work that he does through his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and really working to build a better world for them and all of our youth. Like that pulls at my heart because I do a lot of youth work. So first off, let's get that out of the way. Dorsey Nunn is a leading expert with over 40 years of professional experience in criminal justice reform. He's the first formerly incarcerated director of public interest law office in California. Dorsey was sentenced to life in California DOC when he was 19. He was paroled in 1981 and discharged from parole in 1984. Now, Dorsey has been instrumental in changing the national narrative around formerly incarcerated people and centering people with conviction histories as the subject matter experts. If you have been incarcerated, you are now a subject matter expert in the field of criminal justice reform. I can say all the great things that I can about him, but I think one of the things that certifies his expertise, among many things, is he was actually mentioned in one of the books that has really opened up and changed the conversation about race and the caste system in America. Michelle Alexander's great book, The New Jim Crow. And Dorsey, man, it's just an honor. I got goosebumps right now being able to introduce you, have you on the panel. Welcome, everybody. Please welcome and join me in welcoming Dorsey. So y'all, I'm going to jump right to it. Look, we had a great panel that talked about the healing that needs to happen after incarceration and the role that community plays in providing that healing space, what people can do to activate to help heal the community, help our returning citizens, healing the communities that created the circumstances in which people found themselves incarcerated. I am wholeheartedly all about that work. I say that to say the healing needs to happen so then the work can really begin, right? So the transformative change can really begin. And both of you have really put your money where your mouth is in doing that. But I want to ask the question, what can the community do to be about policy, about public policy change that will now start to build that the conditions for transformative change to occur? I'm going to go to you first, Obie, and then Dorsey. I'll go to you.
Thank you. I think this is a really great question about what can the community do, in other words, to one, not only help push forward policies and legislative things, in other words, for purposes of change, but it taps back to what the sister Ebony said earlier. It really is about acknowledging those things and becoming creative, as June has said, right? Always standing in an imaginative space. I think that's what has transpired in respect to any of the policy bills that we were able to be participatory with. Was that we was just in this imaginative space. Was in a place where Kim was at in regards to one, wasn't there, and two, that means then this opportunity to be creative, to stay in the creative spot. And so getting to start thinking about ways, in other words, to create things around, but at the same time, coming from being in the box for 17 years, and going through that sort of that systematic oppression and depression and degradation and humiliation in which they send you through. After being exonerated of those things, the first and foremost thing coming to your mind is how can you hold them responsible for what has transpired, and specifically not only about the things that happened in there, but also out here upon my release, realizing when, as Kim said, that they just kick you out. They kick you out with they kick me out with no direction, no sort of kind of counselor, no social worker, no medical, no none of those things. And I was hearing those same conversations from other exonerated individuals, and we was hearing the conversations about people who come in home are return to sentencing population, they get this, they get that. What about us? And I was just never the one, even in the prison or out of the prison, to be much of the kind of community kind of talker guy. I was like, listen to everything that's going on and then try to figure out a way to create a process. And that's what's been going on. And I think that's one of the things that the community can do is to take that course of action of imaginating and sort of kind of, knowing what's not there and being imaginative about what can be created there versus what they can do to fix what's there. I think, that's a lot of attention now around the criminal legal system. It's about reform and changing things. But for me, that's great. But what needs to happen now is the creation of accountability. And so accountability need to be created. And so that's another active opportunity for the community to get involved with, is to, in other words, to not only, aggravate their, legislative and representatives from their particular region in regards to, whether or not if the district attorneys are being held accountable for overcharging an individual sitting in the prison for 37 years for a 2-year crime. Have they been held accountable for framing these individuals, withholding evidence? Who are we putting in place in these places? And so that's the active role of the community in my mind in respect to policy, is the awareness aspect about who's going into these places, and being fully aware of those individuals, because understanding how, what they can do to the community. And so the power is in the people's hand in respect to those things. And so being imaginative in respect to what's not there, seeing what's not there about what we can do to create change, or to not to create change, but to bring about the manifestation of something new.
All right, and I appreciate all of that answer. I heard three key things. One is to inform yourself about what the system is, right? And what is there and what isn't there. To be imaginative about how do we start to fill in those gaps and find those holes in which people are I guess intentionally, unintentionally, depends on who you talk to, those holes where lives are falling into. And then 3, do something about it, right? Like actually do, and I'll step on my soapbox for just a second. Do something outside of sharing something on social media, right? Yeah. Like show up at the State House, right? Educate yourself about one of the most powerful players in the criminal legal system, the district attorneys, who move without a lot of accountability, but have so much power and influence on the outcome of somebody who's charged with a criminal offense. I appreciate you outlining all that. If I misspoke or misrepresented anything you said, let me know. I look to hold myself accountable in that sense. Dorsey, I want to ask you a very similar question. You know, to the point of where people are sitting at home, sitting in their communities, and saying somebody should do something, right? Oh, that ain't right, man. Why does somebody do something about this? What is the next step when that thought crosses somebody's mind? What can they do? What should they do? Who do they reach out to? What got you fired up to? Well, I know what got you fired up, but how do you excite and activate people into action?
You know, like the first thing I need to say is that I think that people should embrace the problem like they own the problem. You know, because most of the time, I don't need people pitying me. I need people to help. You know, and I don't need them to see me as the problem, to see that we got a common problem, whether it be supremacy, structural racism. You know, when I came home, I've been doing this thing. I got out in October 1981. I walked probably less than 100 yards, and for the next 6 years of my life, standing outside of San Quentin, what I did was start engaging in something called the prison law office, engaging in a fight to change things. You know, so to the most part, when I'm operating, and what can help me healthy is that I think that I'm doing God's work, and I think I'm working for a cause that's much greater than me. You know, and every morning that I wake up, I feel like I'm participating in an area that's a blessing for me, and it's a blessing for other people. So like, you know, in the event that somebody should get out and I can help them find a place to stay, help them find a life that's meaningful, that's one less person that I don't necessarily have to worry about, and that will add to all of our richness, not just their individual richness. You know, so when I think about the first thing that needs to happen, particularly with Black folks, the people that's coming home is coming home to your community. And I had the sorry experience of asking some Black folks, an audience of Black folks, saying, how many of you want your loved ones released? And everybody raised their hand. Then I said, how many of you want them to come home to you? And those hands started to come down. You know, so it's like at a certain point, how do we have a real authentic conversation? You know, I'm sitting up here wiping tears out of my eyes because when Kim spoke, I didn't speak up, but I wasn't not only in Michelle Alexander book, I was in 13 too. And I spent most of my time on that set crying because I knew when they said, say her name, I was having real difficulties because it was an expression of vulnerability because I couldn't defend my own community. So my trauma comes from the inability to defend my kids, the inability to defend the women in the community, the inability to do a whole bunch of other things like make my environment safe because we got interluders that comes through there and willing to put a knee on the neck and willing to gather us up in massive numbers. You know, so like, you know, some of the policy work, you know, I fought for 3 years, probably 3 years, to stop them from shackling pregnant women. I fought to ban the box that's in 35 states. I'm currently engaged in fighting to get them to remove involuntary servitude out of the California Constitution and to collapse, get rid of slavery out the United States Constitution. As Susan Burton was sitting here when we talk about we haven't had one generation since they uttered the proclamation emancipation, that we haven't had one generation that didn't have somebody in their family enslaved. Well, at least that's true for me. So like, where do our fight really begin? You know, so it's like, maybe it's the consciousness, because like some parts of it is that narrative. So you introduce people as formerly incarcerated people. Do you know where it came from? Do you know it came from Eddie Ellis and Divine Pryor? Do you know it's a part of some other people's doctrine? When you say the en masse incarceration, Michelle did that. When you say critical resistance, do you know your history? Do you know that came from Angela Davis, Ruthie Gilmore, and I think y'all call it on Mill College, I think y'all might call it Sherreri at this point. That used to be Julia Salisbury. and she fought for the changing of in the prison industrial complex. And what does it mean? What does it really mean? And so if, like when I say I'm fighting to end slavery, they can't predicate and maintain that system of mass incarceration unless they steal free labor from all of the people they lock up.
Right. And Dorsey, you said a lot there. You said a lot there. I want to pick up on one of the jewels that you dropped, and raise a question for you to kind of highlight. When we talk about mass incarceration, when we talk about the prison industrial complex that is predicated on locking up literally millions of people, what are the collateral consequences of that mass incarceration that people just don't recognize or realize? Like you spoke to it just a little bit about coming back to our communities. Go ahead.
But you can't lock up 2 million people without locking up brilliance and genius. What are they depriving the rest of the community from? Kim Carter was on here speaking, and I know she'd have managed a multi-million-dollar nonprofit corporation. I'm managing, with limited education, a multi-million-dollar nonprofit corporation. Susan Burton is, Daryl Atkinson is. I can go through a list of us formerly incarcerated people. Norris Henderson. I can run through a list of us at this point that came home that's employing large numbers of people, and we operate multi-million-dollar nonprofit corporations. So, and I was never the smartest, the brightest, the most intelligent, the biggest, the strongest, the most handsome person that was locked up with me. You know what I'm saying?
You're probably the most charismatic, though, huh?
So what did we deprive the community of?
Right.
What did we lose when we allowed them just to come in and steal our folks, giving us unbelievable amount of time, to strip us of the right to bear arms, to strip us of job opportunities, to strip us of the ability to actually house ourselves? What does it mean? When you talk about stuff like reentry in California, the discrimination alone is probably reduce the gross national product in California by $20 billion a year. $4 billion in Northern California, $9 billion in the Los Angeles area. But we don't never think about, if it's about that, what does it have in the impact in the jobs? What does it have in the Black community? And by the way, when you say community, you can come home and not have one of those because you could have been displaced by gentrification. So when we say we coming home, what does it mean to us? When you get there, it's not there.
Right.
Yeah, I think no. I mean, and that just reiterates the point that Kim was making earlier, where formerly incarcerated people a lot of times do not have a community, whether it's through displacement, gentrification, or as you mentioned earlier, the not in my backyard group, right? That says, yes, I want my people to come home, but I don't want them to come home to my home, right? So it's like, it's about building and realizing the assets that are the formerly incarcerated people, and building that community, whether it's through the holistic organic community that we look alike, or through, again, I want to say through policy, right? How do we, so Obie, this question is for you. I want to build off of what Dorsey was just talking about, and saying, realizing that these jewels exist, that these people with so much talent and knowledge and skills and, as he said, good looks, right? These are people who are coming back out of incarcerated situations. How do we, and I'm going to say we as those who are motivated enough to be in this conversation right now, how do we go out and begin to make and hold space for our brothers and sisters who are returning home?
I mean, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, like, I think, Dorsey, you hit the nail on the head. I was affected by that. Like, my family member may have been in the audience. Yes, I want Obie to come home. And then the moment about, well, can he stay with you? Well, this and that. And so You know, it starts right there, bro. That's what can happen. It really is about connecting back. So the family have to be healed too. We're talking about healing, and we're talking about you know, the black man being removed and the damage that it does when we are removed, and the consequences of it that it's been having on a trickle effect in our community. You know, I definitely 1,200% agree with Dorsey when he says, look at what's come out of those boxes. Look what has come out of those boxes. And when people say, well, you know, are you going to make up for lost times? No, I'm not going to make up for lost times, because you know those times is exactly what you just referenced to. I'm here to do new things now, and so that new thing really starts there at the family in the unit. So what can happen is that these sort of kind of conversations about, hey, look, what does it look like when cousin Cliff come back home, man? Like, you know, anybody thinking about that? You know, having those conversations about our family members that are incarcerated, and those are difficult conversations for family members. And how do I know? Is because I have three sisters, but two of them in which, you know, they never came in. You know, for 17 years they didn't see me up until 14 years of my incarceration, and it was only by persuasion of my then fiance that they was able to, you know, that they decided that they wanted to come to. But I wasn't in a place at that time to deal with their own separational trauma that they had to go through because of my removal, and because of my removal and what was going on with them, and the fear and the headache that what they was going to come into those boxes. So it left me with a struggle within myself and dealing with them, right? And so now I have this complication about like, man, well, you abandoned me, so I'm having those issues. Well, they have out there about, look, well, you wasn't here and we needed help. What the brother Dorsey said, that's what I struggle with. It's the providing and the protecting of the community. And the reason why we're so vigorous about it now, because we understand our role in the beginning. Like, I'm from South Central Los Angeles. I know what I grew up in. I know what I was going on was over there. And so when the sister said earlier, Kim, when she mentioned it could feel good to going from breaking the law to changing the law to making laws. Well, you know, it feels good. In other words, to realize, you know, I'm Dorsey too in that instance. I'm nowhere near the brightest light bulb in the bunch. And never did I study, in other words, to do this work. My study there was to keep myself safe, how I'm gonna get out of jail. That was that. That's all I was concerned with. But then getting back to what Kim said, realizing when I came home, it was nothing there. But when I came home, all right, because the hand went down, so I had no place to go, right? I had no community because they had all been dispersed because of the negativity or the negative conversation that they would have and sap from the media and from all of the other things that was going on about the black man, period.
All right, so Obie, I hear all of that, and again, you just dropped some gems. One of these problems I have when I have these conversations, ideas start generating, and I'm like, well, we need to start a program in order to start these family reconciliation pre-release meetings, and someone who could facilitate those conversations and build resources. But I know I don't have the time to do it because I'm already putting out all these fires and navigating these paths and tending to these farms and all of the things I'm doing. Let me ask y'all. Well,
check this out. Right now, I'm in the process of building, reclaiming a Black historical site in the middle of West Oakland. Then I'm going to turn it into a long-term transitional housing for people who have served long sentences.
Nice.
And what I want to do is to give them the chance to have a real life.
Right.
You know, because if they didn't spend those that Buck Rogers times, that 15, 16, 20, and 30 years, they may not necessarily be able to do construction work. They may not have that and have a long life. So maybe if I can get them in one space, give them some computers and teach them some stuff on the computers, that maybe they can expand their lifespan, like to the point where it's that way. You know, every year we release enough people out of prison to rebuild our community, but we don't never give them a dream or an aspiration that actually get them to come out to actually think about it. So right now, if I open up my door right now, in my office, I got probably 150 years missing because the people I'm hiring ain't got that little time. They've been doing those 20s, those 30 years, and then did put in more time in prison than that they lived on the streets. Who helped them? You know, and the other reality is, it mean like some people wasn't there to hold their hand up because all of our relatives died while we was incarcerated.
Well, so Dorsey, I think you're hitting on the point I want to ask, right? So we know what the problem is, and there's a lot of different aspects to the problem of. We have a society that thrives on locking people up, particularly Black people up, brown people up. We have a society that has indoctrinated some of those communities to be resistant to accepting those people once they're released, right? But then we have those, I say this metaphorically, we have the dozen, the disciples, the ones who are buy in and want to do something, but without them advocating and inspiring others and spreading the gospel of Obie and Dorsey and Jonathan and saying, hey, this is an issue, then it's just a few of us. I'm looking to see how do we multiply those. When somebody says, you know what, I heard Dorsey when he said, we need to help families prepare for their relatives before they get released. I want to start a program that does that. What is just like maybe those first 2, maybe 3 steps that a person needs to take to get motivated and activated to do something?
I don't want to make this an individual question about individual persons. I think that we need system-wide change.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's like, you know, at a certain point, at the point that you put the handcuffs on me, we need to be thinking about my pre-release right then. We don't need to think about my pre-release 90 days to the street, 6 months to the streets. You need to be thinking about releasing me right then. So, you know, and if we got to that frame of mind that what you was going to be releasing, because like, you know, I had the blessings of being incarcerated with members of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. And I had an outstanding promise that I would return to the community an asset instead of a liability. So they may have hated those folks, but those folks taught me how to read, you know. And when you say subject matter experts, there's other subject matter experts that came along and the society and the community respected them, you know. So how much education did you really think that was formal that Frederick Douglass have or had? How about Harriet Tubman? How about Red, who became Malcolm X? How much education do you think they had before? So when I show up as a subject matter expert, don't think that I don't have something to offer, because I could be offering more than what's being provided, because my ambition and my dreams are similar like Kim's. And I need to thank Kim because I was banned in the box. I went to something, one of those motivational things that she did in the middle of all of us a non-meeting. And I walked out and I decided that what we needed to do was start buying a half a block.
Nice. Yeah.
You know, so if I want to fight gentrification, then I'm gonna stop whining about it and start buying them some people's property. You know, so when I would say I'm gonna fix up a historical Black site, it means that it's still under our control. So what do we do to do that stuff? And how do we get the community to embrace this stuff? You know, so the people who are working in this office, I wish I could say they work for a whole bunch of money. They don't. They work for, they got ambitions and they got a dream that they can produce community change. Is the community willing to accept that? And by the way, for everybody that's in the Bay Area in Oakland, if you don't believe me, stop by 4400 Market Street in Oakland, and I will show you the Freedom and Movement Center in which formerly incarcerated people built for themselves.
You know,
because
Dorsey,
that's what exists there.
To that point, I want you just real quick, tell the people about the background check that that the people who work for you have to go through.
Did you do anything that's going to embarrass us? Yes or no?
No, you're in.
I'm done. I'm like, because like I can't necessarily say I don't have biases. I don't want to hear that stuff and become my oppressor. So like, you know what I'm saying? So if you ain't did nothing, if you did something to embarrass us, then we need not to put you in front of the camera.
Right. That means you ain't getting hired.
You know what I'm saying? If you got some dirty laundry and you embarrassing, admit that stuff so we won't throw you out there and you be the next keynote speaker with the press there.
See, when we're talking about thinking outside the box, we talk about thinking outside the box, banning the box. That's what I'm talking about. It's eliminating the box.
Hold it. I don't think I've asked anybody that worked for me so far, man, what was you convicted of? Because like, that question wasn't put there to secure job opportunities. I mean, when you look at it, I believe that on the college campus, when you come to poor Black people, I think y'all still filling out FAFSA applications. And I think it's incorporated in the FAFSA application. When it comes to that question for TANF or what they used to call welfare, it takes the question a little bit deeper and asks, is anybody in your family convicted? So when we was banned in the box, and we accomplished that in California, we banned the box in the 5th largest economy in the world. And the lead person on that effort was a person by the name of Sandra Johnson when it got to the legislature. And she was a first-year fellow in our program. Yeah. So because like you say, how do we expand? I got a fellowship program that people are back there studying public policy that are formerly incarcerated because we don't want to keep sitting outside the room while people are making deals about our lives. We want to pull up to the table and have a say-so. So if you're a member of All of Us or None, your first part of that is to be willing to speak in your own voice. The second part of it is that everybody is deserving of public safety. And the other part of it is that, I get to most organizations and I say, do you have a code of conduct? Do you have a unity pledge? And in our code of conduct, we come into the room pledging not to practice racism, homophobia, or sexism. So it's like, before you can't even be a member if you ain't gonna do that stuff.
Right. And look, I don't even know how to follow that up. I mean, it's just like, you're so inspiring. I'm hoping people are hearing that it really just comes down to basic humanity and expecting to be treated and treat other people with basic decency, recognizing humanity, even though a person may have been incarcerated for a crime, in whatever the motivation for that crime, or in Obie's situation, unjustly convicted of a crime, right? Obie, before we go over to the question and answer section of this, I just want to ask you, as I read your story and all of the things that you've been a part of over the last several years since you've been exonerated, Obie's Law is probably, like, I would say, like a crowning achievement outside of children, right? When a person goes into looking at writing legislation or having laws change, policy change, how would one go about that? What are kind of those first key steps? What is the support system that you need in order to get to that point?
First and foremost, I think the support system that you need is the people who has been immediately affected by it, right? And so to have those individuals who are affected by it to come together with an understanding that it's an opportunity here for us to affect something new or change some things is the first step, first and foremost. The body has to be willing to move, in other words, to go represent itself. And so that's the first thing. And then ultimately, after those things are done, then it's about really is about then are we ready to go? Now, where we go? This is where we're going. So have an objective as to what you out to seek to accomplish. And when it came to Obie's Law, the crazy thing of it is that the objective there was really about holding prosecutors accountable for withholding evidence against individuals' innocence and framing them and leaving them in two situations of where they was in prison for crimes they didn't commit. That was the main focus. but consequently, because we were focused on that, the questions became, what's going on with the individuals when we walk out of the door? And my statement to them was that remember, the arrogancy of the state says that only guilty people go to jail. Well, here is the affected bodies. And so you have to bring the body to move the motion, to make the motion happen, right? And so when Kim and them earlier was talking about, that foundation, tilling the ground by the work that the nourisher do, the woman, and those things, and to have the support of the man to come by to secure that ground, putting the foundation down so that now we can put the four walls up and build together, shelter, all of those things. That's what sort of kind of, those are the things that kind of pushed that along. Was the fact that, one, we had a direction, we was talking about prosecutorial misconduct, holding them accountable for those things there, consequently, having that look at the situation now and then move forward. And so, I was really excited. It wasn't I set out to do anything about Obie's Law. They actually called me and said that because of what transpired with you and because of these things here, the legislative body wants to do something about it. And the only reason why they wanted to do something about it was because we had the affected body in front of them. It's one thing, again, to read all the information on the brother Dorsey Nunn, but I'm gonna tell you, it's tremendously different to sit here and listen to him, hear his voice, to see his face, to feel his vibe. It was a tremendously different effect upon me. This man here, it was maybe several years ago, upon when I began to start doing this work, was a source of my information. This was a direct, I had to go, you have Dorsey Nunn, all of us Nunn is doing this. Well, I'm gonna need to find out. I need to read and understand what he did. In other words, I'll follow that path, and which brought forth these things. And so that's why I'm so honored in your presence, because of the work that you did, gave me, again, coming from that same 8x10, that metal bed, no education, hope and the opportunity of creation because of your example of what you're doing. And so I say keep it up, but that's where it happens at though, bro, right there.
Hey, bro, I'm in the winter of my life. And if y'all don't come along, I already know the fight that I'm in, I'm not gonna win before I go. So everybody that's exiting that cell, I got an ancestral wall in my building, that we put up the pictures, got George Jackson up there. We got Malcolm, we got Coretta. We got a wall of people that then passed that's all our heroes because they don't think that we have heroes. And I can hear the system listen to Susan, and I can think, because they somehow would split us between the deserving and the undeserving. So the question that I posed to you when you was talking to me, you talked about reentry. And I said, well, I don't know if I was ever in because I came from inferior schools, I came from, a crowded household, I don't know what am I re-entering to, I knew my parents loved me, but, all the rest of it was sort of shaky, and I can get with Kim too. If we want a future, we're gonna have to build that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to build what we have to build what we need. That's how come I work real hard. And when I say we got a fellowship program in here called the Elder Freeman Fellow, and Elder Freeman was a Black Panther member, and he learned how to read when he was in the county jail. So we got formerly incarcerated people being trained to learn how to write law and to learn how to pass law, right? I'm not running into so many other Black people that took enough time to do it for Black people in general. Right. So some of the people I'm training is gonna wind up actually carrying the water for all of us, because I don't necessarily think that people are actually building institutions that actually embrace us that way to figure out like, oh, so you can't read that well. Let me give you a little bit of time so you can learn. Let me give you a computer since the state didn't give us a computer when we was in prison. Right. Let me help you with a computer, because have y'all ever seen when Geronimo was freed, he took that 3-prong seat belt in that car and tried to tie it around his neck.
Yep.
So like at a certain point, Who's responsible for embracing our folks that could make us all stronger? You know, because I can swear to you that people are safe in front of my building, people are safe in my building, and I think that everybody that work here will provide a greater cushion for safety. And if we have to build, man, I haven't made one check that I got to keep myself. I share that with everybody in my neighborhood. You know, I'm buying food there, I'm doing all the rest of it. So when I talk about billions of dollars being ripped off, everybody think I'm just talking about from us. I got kids, I got grandkids, I got great grandkids. Do they deserve a break in this matter? Right. Do they deserve somebody going to represent them before the school board? Do they deserve an opportunity to have a father, a grandfather, somebody else to help them get through college? Because I could have been the first one that made it in my community and in my family that got this far. Who helps the rest of them? So like, you know, and by the way, I love Mill College. When I first came home, I lived on 60th and Foothill. And I used to come down 580 so I can pretend that I wasn't in the ghetto.
Hey, Dorsey, Obie, I'm going to open it up for questions, but real quick, I want to just, man, again, you dropping jewels. Dorsey, well, before I go there, Obie, I want Ashe, brother, I see you, I feel you, and know that we have never exchanged in presence, but I got you, man. Like your willingness to be vulnerable in this space is, again, inspiring for everybody, and understanding that you have an affected body in front of you. That right there, that's George Floyd, right? That's Ahmaud Arbery. That's Breonna Taylor. That's oh, I almost cussed. My mama's in here, so I caught myself. But unfortunately, our tragedies are the ones that are affecting change. And I'm just glad that you have stood on that and not let it bury you, right? And I just appreciate that. To Dorsey, I want to say, when you talk about us being at the school board, when you talk about us supporting each other by helping each other learn how to read and become literate, and you started off with saying you're in the winter, and understanding that this fight is ongoing. I'm going to give respect and highlight a brother who I got to know after he actually passed, in Nipsey, when he says the marathon continues. That's I hope that everybody hears in your words, in Obie's words, in my words, that this is a marathon and we need you all on that track with us. Like, we can't do it all by ourselves. So I'm going to open this up real quick to any questions. I saw one earlier, but I'm hoping somebody's helping monitor the chat here.
We are, and thank you. I'm gonna jump in. Jonathan, Dorsey, Obie, thank you for your heart. Thank you for your truths. Thank you for carrying us. This is beautiful. We are going to open it up for questions, but I'd like to also give another shout out to the panelists that we had in our first panel, Women Creating Pathways for Healing, June Lee, Ebony Carter, and Kim Carter. If you're still here, we'll invite you also for these last few minutes of taking questions. And again, Jonathan McMillan, Dorsey Nunn, and Obie Anthony. If we do have, and I was not actually paying enough attention to the chat. So if somebody did have a question in the chat, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the panelists any questions that you have. Including our previous panelists. We've only got just a couple minutes left, but we'll take some questions as you have them.
I see Chrysalis House has hand raised.
Yes, I'm Becky from the Chrysalis House. I did ask this question earlier, but then it's going to be a more broad spectrum to the panel. We were talking about community leaders that have made a difference within the Black, brown, and queer community. And one that I feel that wasn't really touched on in this talk was Marsha P. Johnson and her willingness to bring queer life to the forefront, produce change within rights for queer people, and bring up the conversation about sex workers' rights and mental health within the Black community. And I just want to know, where do you, as a panel member, stand on this, and how having accountability when we've hurt ones within our own community? What would be the next steps to heal that?
May I take moderator liberty real quick and address that, please? Becky, I appreciate the question. I will be the first one to say I am not qualified to speak on LGBTQ issues, but I have much respect for anyone who is taking up the cause for underrepresented and over-persecuted people. I will even say, to a contemporary issue about what recently happened in Atlanta, I think that, boy, I'm going to step out on a limb real quick. I think that hopefully as we talk about the hate crimes that are happening to our Asian American and Pacific Islander brothers and sisters, we also talk about the vulnerability of sex workers, because they're over prosecuted. They're easy fodder for the criminal legal system to make their numbers on, and then they're ostracized and stigmatized by society. And anyone who is taking up that fight, boy, you are, especially as a person of color, you are falling on a double-edged sword. So I appreciate anyone who takes who fights for justice for that population.
Thank you, Jonathan. I am gonna call out to Sandra Bernal. If you have a question, please.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. It's such an honor. This question is for everybody, all the panelists. So unfortunately, our system, our public policy system, works in a way that there is an issue, but if people are not paying attention to it, nothing gets changed. And until something like George Floyd or Breonna Taylor happens, then policymakers want to jump in and make change. So how do you guys make noise of issues that are happening to our communities, but everybody is living in a bubble and not paying attention to it? How do you deal with that? How do you make that noise and make it happen?
Hey, how I make it happen is I come to you and ask you for help. So everybody here, I'm asking for help. I'm asking for help to help pass AB 990 that will give me the right to actually have a relationship with my kids when they're grabbed up by the foster care system. I'm asking you for help to help me with 354 that will make a right to visit for people who are family members that want to visit the prison system. I'm asking you for help in helping us do away with Amendment 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution that allows them not to only punish us, but to enslave us. So I'm asking you for that help. And like I said, my address is 4400 Market Street in Oakland, California. And you're welcome to stop by the Freedom and Movement Center. And my office phone number is 415-255-7036, extension 312. So you can call me and I can ask you for help personally.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Henry Ortiz, please, you have a question?
Yes, real quick, just a quick statement. My name is Henry Ortiz. I'm a senior staff organizer with the All of Us or Nunn Sacramento chapter. In regards to trauma, I've done a lot of work on trauma, wrote curriculums, did trainings, and evolved a lot of healing throughout the prison system to various people that are incarcerated and various people that have been able to gain insight into the causative factors of why they committed the crimes as they relate to trauma. I want to address the question that was asked here. And invite you to attend some of our membership meeting work. I think we have one on Monday 6:30 from 8 p.m. Look us up at All of Us or None Sacramento, because that is a big issue that I do want to start addressing in our chapter, is post-traumatic stress and trauma and trauma and issues of that nature. They affect everybody, whether you're LGBTQ, whether you're Black, you're brown, you're Asian, you know, like, and we have to acknowledge it collectively, because we're all suffering together in this community, and we're going to need community to uplift and hold communities. These clinical doctors that don't have lived experiences could only do so much for us. Medication ain't going to be the most healthiest approaches. The most healthiest approaches that I've found with some of the most, you know, quote unquote, murderers, killers, and gang members and whatnots, right, were some of the most amazing men who brought out some of the most painful stuff that they went through as kids. And you were able to see how that hurt and that pain evolved into rage, into a belief system, into a behavior pattern, into a lifestyle that led to mass incarceration and victimization of communities of color. So I know that today that question might not be able to be addressed in depth because of the timing issues, but I do want to invite you. My name is Henry Ortiz. You can look me up at Henry Community Healer on the Instagrams, but also All of Us or None Sacramento, AOUON is our hashtag or our handle. And we would like to offer more support in that space as needed and in accordance to our capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you very much. We have time for one more question. William Palmer, you have your hand up.
Hi, my name is William Palmer, also known as Tarek. In 31 years, I was given my purpose in life by Allah, and it took me a little long to find Dorsey Nunn, who gave me my job and an opportunity to live my purpose as the host of One Community, One Mic every second and fourth Thursday of the month, where we come together as a collective community and help share our strategies. So if you need that type of help in helping us with our strategies, solving some of our challenges, and celebrating our success and what we do for the community, please show up every second and fourth Thursday on Facebook webinar live. But what I wanted to say was, we have a membership meeting today at 6:30, and we need you to show up so that we can help shape the person who don't know their purpose in life. I think a lot of the problem is, when I was dealing with the youth inside a prison, was they didn't know their purpose. And so they would go to the games, or they would go to the homeboys that had the sack, because at least they had something to do and it looked like a purpose. But when you actually sat down with them and you guided them to their purpose and guided them in their purpose, they became a whole new person. And I had Hispanics, I had African Americans, I had European Americans at the end of our classes. They would risk their life to celebrate in a spread, what we call a spread inside, to eat together, to say, now I got a purpose and I see you as my brother and not as my adversary or my enemy. So if we really want to solve our community problems, we need to make sure that every human being in our community knows their purpose in their community, and enlarge the state, the nation, and the world. So that's what I encourage you to do if you want to help out. Make sure that the person that you're in contact with know their purpose in life.
Thank you so much. Folks, we are at time. This has been a beautiful time. Let me thank all of you for having joined us. Let me thank the audience that has joined us in this enriching, uplifting conversation. Again, deep thanks to June Lee, Ebony Carter, Kim Carter, Jonathan McMillan, Dorsey Nunn, and Obie Anthony. Our heart to you all, and to the two moderators, June Lee and Jonathan McMillan. Thank you all. We're going to call it at time. Thank you all for being here.
I need to work with you.
We'll sit here and keep on with this conversation until the last person's left. Thank you, everybody.
Go to my website.
Stay connected, folks. Stay connected. Stay connected. Build on today.
Thank you all.
Keep doing the work, Kim.
All right, thank you, guys. Go to my website. Come to my.
I listen. I love your spirit. It is so big and strong. Thank you.
Right.
Hey, Obie, I would love to connect with you, bro.
Hey,
I have-
yeah, panelists, please stay on. Please stay on so we can make sure you all say hello to each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's give just a few minutes and we'll get you all in final conversation.
I have some brothers that's totally innocent inside, and I would love to help get them exonerated and out of that place. I have a brother that's been in almost 50 years, and he has no identification by the witnesses that were still alive and could identify. None of them could identify him as being a part of it. He's out of San Francisco. It's an infamous case, and if he doesn't get help, he's going to die in there, innocent man. So. If
Definitely
you
working
can
on
help us, if
whatever way
you
I
can
can
help me
help.
help him, I would love to hear anything that you have to share.
Yeah, absolutely. You could definitely get my contact. You definitely reach out to me as soon as you can in respect to that and whatever help, in other words, that I could be in the direction of those things. I think, I'm definitely with that. One of the things that comes our way is the help for avocation and or assistance to, help get individuals exonerated in those crimes for crimes they didn't commit, and sort of kind of what are the starting points and where to go and who to turn to, and specifically up there. And because you have up north now the Northern California Innocent Project and also a conviction integrity unit there that is also digesting and looking over cases. It really is about sort of kind of which way, and I definitely love to chat up with you about how can we help, or how can I help you in that direction.
Can I give you my number or email, or can I get yours? Because I'm at TARIQ at
I have it. I have it.